Sew Yours. In today's video, we are making the Sutherland backpack. This is my newest sewing pattern available for purchase on my website at sewyours.com. I have done a separate introductory video that goes over who this backpack's going to be perfect for, the different features this bag has to offer, the different interfacings and bindings that you can go ahead and use. So make sure you check that video out. I am also going to go ahead and link it to our Facebook group. Please join the group. Ask any questions you might have on this pattern or any other of the other patterns that I have. And then also make sure you go ahead and post a picture of your completed Sutherland or any other bag that you do make with my patterns in the group. I absolutely love seeing what you guys make with my sewing patterns. I will also make a point to go ahead and list all of the tools, the hardware, the supplies, and the notions that I'm using in this video in the description box below. If you see something that you like, you can go ahead and purchase it from my link. And lastly, all of my Sutherland backpacks that you're going to see today, as well as any other prior bag that I've made in one of my sewing tutorials or in my sewing patterns, are going to be available for purchase on my website in the next month. They're all going to be one-of-a-kind bags, so if you see something you like, go ahead and purchase it. I guess it's time to go ahead and get on into the video so that you can sew yours. Okay, what I have laid out here is my bottom gusset pieces, which are these two, and these are all of my top gusset pieces right here. So what I mean by that is, if you see this bag, and hopefully you can get it on, I can get this on camera, my bottom gusset piece starts halfway here on the bag, goes down around the bottom and back around the other side. And the top gusset pieces wrap around the top here. Now when I have this laid out here on my cutting mat, what I've got it laid out like is the front of the bag pieces are here, and then as it goes back right here. So when you're cutting your fabric and you're laying it out, I recommend that you lay them out just like I'm doing here. That way you can keep your sanity, you know which gusset piece goes where. So like I said, the bottom gusset piece, this is the front one. So this is the smaller one right here, okay? So this is the bottom gusset A piece. We've got our exterior and our lining. All of our cotton pieces have the SF101 on them. So that is the first of the two bottom gusset pieces. Now this is bottom gusset B piece. Again, for all of these, we're gonna have the exterior and the lining with the SF101. So these make up the bottom of the bag. Next we have our top gusset pieces here. So going from the front of the bag towards the back of the bag, they gradually get larger. So our very front gusset piece is top gusset number 1. Then we have top gusset number 2, top gusset number 3. And lastly, we have our gusset in the back, which is divided up a little bit here. So we have our side gusset piece, we have our center gusset, which is underneath this handle, and then the other side gusset piece. Now inside of the bag, these three pieces basically are just, the lining is just one large piece, because you don't need to have it separated because you're not doing the handle obviously on the inside. So here we have our two side gusset pieces. This is the top gusset number 4 center. Okay, so these are all number 4. And then we have our lining, which is the one continuous piece right here. So that makes up the top gusset piece. And then we have our handle pieces. So here we have our handle, which I recommend doing in quilt cotton. And then we're going to go ahead and do a handle overlay piece here. So you can see in my bag, this is my handle with the overlay. Let's move on to the body of the bag, the front, the back, and then the lining. All right, so these are the pieces that make up the actual front, back, and the lining of the bag. So we're going to start off with the front exterior panel here. We have our front exterior overlay, I believe it's called. I don't have my label for that particular piece right here. This one I've done in vinyl, but if you're choosing to make this bag all in cotton, I do have a separate pattern piece. It's a 2-part piece for the cotton. I'll show you that later when we get to that construction portion, but you can certainly make this bag all in cotton. So that is the overlay piece. Then we have our front exterior sides right here, and we have our front exterior middle piece. Okay. Again, all of these are going to be lined with SF101, or again, you could do sew fuse on these as well. That's actually what I have. I get so used to saying SF101, but I'm actually using SewFuse. That's the one that I like now. And then again, we've got the interfacing on the back. So, just a visual. That was this piece right here. Now we are moving on to the back of the bag here. I have my exterior back, a zipper pocket lining piece right here. Okay, so it's just folded over, one piece. Now, if I was doing cotton on the back of this bag, I would need to go ahead and do a zipper facing piece like I have right here. But since I am doing the vinyl, all I need to do is cut my hole in the vinyl, and then I can go ahead and add this in. So, back of the bag here, we've got our exterior back. That zipper pocket lining is inside here. This one I didn't do the zipper facing at all. And then we do have our strap, let's call it strap anchor right here. So this is the strap anchor piece right here. That's going to hold the straps in place. So this is this portion of the bag. Let's move on to the interior of the bag. So inside the bag here, we have a nice large zipper pocket right there. So this is the panel that I am showing you at the moment. We have our zipper pocket. Again, this is just folded over, and we are doing the zipper facing here because we are working with the cotton. And then we have the one piece here for your exterior back. So that's the back, exterior, and linings is what I've named these. So let me take this clip off. You are going to go ahead and secure some fusible foam or Decaville light, whatever stabilizer of your choices when making this bag. I'll show you that later in the video at the time that we're going to go ahead and do that. I do have foam here. That's what I'm going to be using for my stabilizer, so this is at the bottom. And then the next two pieces, let's talk about, I got that out of order. These are going to be our divider pocket pieces. So I shouldn't say pocket, it's our divider. So what we're going to do is we're going to have these facing each other. So it's going to be wrong sides together. And that's going to make up our divider. So if you look here in our bag, and I open up both of these compartments here, we've got the center piece right here. So that's just simply two pieces of fabric, wrong sides together. We base stitch it in place, and we'll put it in to the middle of the bag to do the divider. And now we're going to move along to the lining in the front. So we have the same kind of panel right here. And then we have our slip pocket right here. So this is the front of the lining right here. Now this particular bag, I went a little shorter on my slip pocket. This pattern piece actually has it coming up a little bit further right here, but you can certainly go ahead and modify that as you like. I've got two spots right here and then also a little slit in the middle, so you can go ahead and add a pen. So that is the front lining piece. And I didn't mention this earlier, but this is optional. I do have a piece of Decaville Heavy here. This is going to go in the bottom of the bag when I'm working on the gusset, so that's going to be placed right here in the very bottom of the bag. So these are all my stabilizer pieces right here. Now, get all these out of the way. Let's talk about our straps. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, we have two strap options. We do have our standard straps. Let me grab that bag again. So you got your standard straps right here. So it's just your standard 1-inch wide straps, or you can go the route of the padded straps. Depends on what you want to do. I like the padded straps myself. I did create the padded straps after I designed the Sutherland because I realized that it would be definitely a benefit to having these wider straps that are padded here. So the padded straps, we have two exterior pieces right here. We've got two lining pieces. And in the center, we have our foam, fusible foam. Definitely recommend the fusible foam because that's giving the padded option. That's making it padded. I happen to have only one piece of scrap fabric, scrap fusible foam left. That was the double-sided, so the two-sided foam. So I fused it on this particular one, so it's all one piece here. And then I only have a one-sided fusible foam for the other piece, so I'm just going to go ahead and base stitch that later on in place. And these straps look like little socks, don't they? So these straps are actually going out like this. So it's a contoured strap, so whenever you're wearing the bag, you're going to have it on your body like this. You do not want them inward, so it's going to be out like this. And then, so that's the top portion of the straps right here. And then we have our bottom portion, which is our standard 1-inch wide straps. So that is these two pieces right here that makes up the bottom. Now the one thing I haven't cut yet, I'm still kind of debating on once I kind of get going on this bag, is my binding, my bias binding here. I think I'm probably going to go like I did here with the waterproof canvas. It's really, I prefer binding with waterproof canvas. It's just easy to sew. You simply just fold it over and sew it on. You can do store-bought binding, which I might do on the inside of the bag. I haven't decided yet. Or you can make your own binding. I tried that. I did do my own binding on this bag, and it worked out fine. It's just more work to make your own binding. So this is my own binding on the bag here. So that matches. The only thing that I'm kind of debating on with this one is if I want to go with the black binding for the lining and do waterproof canvas. I guess it'll go, we'll see. Or maybe I'll go with the store-bought binding and do white, because I don't have anything that's the orange tone. So I think I covered all of the pieces that make up this bag. Okay, this is the hardware that we need to make up the Sutherland. You can go ahead and do 6 zipper pulls, or you can reduce that down to 4 if you're only wanting to do 1 pull per gusset here. So the zipper pulls, you're going to have, if you're doing the double, 4 here, so 2 on each gusset. You're going to have a zipper pull on the inside pocket, as well as the exterior back pocket here. So 4 to 6 zipper pulls. Number 5 or number 3, it's up to you. I recommend doing number 5 for at least the outside of the bag. You can do your linings with number 3s. You're going to need either D-rings, rectangle rings, or O-rings, 1 inch, or 25 millimeters. Those are going to be found here on the bottom where our strap connectors are. In addition, you're going to need a strap slider, also known as a tri-glide. Excuse me, you need 2 of those. I didn't pull out 2. So you're going to need 2 tri-glides, and those are going to be placed right here on your strap. And this is going to be the same for either your standard straps, the 1-inch straps, or the padded straps here. So the same hardware for these. So 2 of those. You're also going to need, what was it? 2 1/4 yards of your zipper tape. So if you're doing all number 5, you can do that. Or if you're doing the combination of number 5 and number 3, but you'll need 2 2/4 yards of zipper tape. Lastly, this is optional, but you'll need some rivets if you're choosing to do rivets. Depends on the thickness of your fabrics, whether you have a 6 millimeter or you need a 9 millimeter. There's different ones. So you need rivets if you're choosing to do so. I like to add it for extra security and also a little extra bling here. So we've got 2 rivets underneath both of these strap anchors. If you're doing the standard straps, you can get away with just doing 1 rivet if you want. And then also, if you're doing the padded straps, adding rivets right here as well. But again, you can certainly just rely on your sewing skills to secure everything in place. I just take that extra measure and add some rivets myself. I'm going to go ahead and add some links to where you can purchase all of this hardware in the description box, so go ahead and check that out. I did want to let you guys know that I'm in the works of talking with some suppliers, and I will be adding hardware hopefully in the next 2, maybe 3 months to my website. So I'm excited to be offering that. If there's anything that you're looking for specifically, go ahead and let me know in the comments. I'll see if I can find that from a supplier, and maybe I can carry that in my store at some point in time. So now it's time to just get into it and start sewing. All right, let's begin by making our padded strap. I have already done this one, and I've chosen to go ahead and use some waterproof canvas, which I have folded in half, and I actually folded it just a little off center, about 1/8 of an inch. What this allows me to do is to ensure that I'm catching my back because it's a little bit larger. Now you'll see here that there is a little bit of bunching as I went around the corner. That's to happen because it is such a sharp corner and we're working with a very thick material here. So if you are working with like a solid fabric, it's not that noticeable, especially once you go ahead and get the bag all put together. It's just not something that you're really going to see. So this one is all set, and I'll explain what I did, and then I'll show you how to go ahead and get it sewn. So most of you are probably going to have just the one-sided fusible foam on hand. So what I've done is just gone ahead and ironed it to one of the pieces. I'm going to take this now and place it over top. I'm going to clip all of this into place and take it over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to base stitch this with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around just to secure everything together. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done right now, and I'll come back to show you how we're clipping the binding on and how we get that sewn. Okay, I have gone ahead and base stitched this into place. Now it's time to take our binding and clip it all into place. Now if you're doing it like I have and you're folding it just a little off center where there's about 1/8 of an inch overhang here, you want the skinnier side to be the right side of the fabric. And that bigger side is going to be on the back. So just go around and clip it into place. I usually like to start just a little bit above the top of the strap here. And once I've gotten this all into place, I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew this with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And what we're doing is we're going to sew it 1/8 of an inch from this edge right here. So let me get this all clipped into place. I'll bring you over to the sewing machine so you can watch me sew. All right, I've got my binding all clipped into place here. I am going to go ahead and just pick a side, and I'm going to start sewing. I've got my stitch length at 4 millimeters, and I have my zipper foot on at the moment. That gives me a nice 1/8 inch guide here on the edge. So I've got my presser foot lined up with the edge of the binding here, the raw edge. And I'm going to begin sewing. I am using my stiletto here to help me go around and keep everything tucked into place. Take your time when you're doing binding. Now, as you can see here, I did not clip all of these edges that want to pucker up because I'm going to kind of work with the fabric and do what it wants to do as I'm going around these corners here. And so I'll need to go ahead and kind of do a little bit of folding here with my stiletto to make those little creases. And then the rest of this is pretty easy. Okay, so here is our strap. Okay, and check your back, make sure that you caught everything. I did, because on this particular one I did that little extra overhang so you can see it is thicker, or I should say wider on the back. I need to go ahead and just cut this fabric here a little. Alright, I've prepped my straps. I wanted to show you the difference in the stages here. So the first thing that we do with the lower strap, and this is going to be the same for your standard straps. So if you're doing all the 1-inch strap without the padding, this is the same exact process. So you're going to take your strap, draw a line down the center, on either side of the line that you've drawn. You go ahead and apply some double-sided tape. This is currently some double-sided tape that I am testing out from one of my suppliers. I am absolutely loving it. It's actually holding my straps into place. As you can see here, I have no problem. It's not lifting at all. So I definitely think that this is something I'll be carrying in my store in the near future. And I have yet to have a strap twist on me. I know you probably had the same problem before where you're working with a standard, purse or shoulder strap, and as you're sewing it, it starts to do the little twist motion. That has not happened since I started using this double-sided tape. So look for that in the upcoming months on my online store at sewyours.com. So what I have done here is after I've applied the tape, I'm going to go ahead and remove the paper backing, fold over both of the raw edges here to meet the center. I do leave a little bit of gap just to account for the thickness as I'm folding. Once you do that, you're going to go ahead and clip it into place. Okay. And then we are going to sew this with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance down, oops, wrong clip there, down the left and the right hand side. I am going to switch over to my Teflon foot. That way the vinyl doesn't stick to my foot. So I'm going to get that done. So I'll get this one sewn up and then I'll get this one to the same stage and then you can watch me go. All right, I have this strap all sewn, as you can see here. And I have prepped out the next one just like we had a moment ago. One thing I wanted to show you that I did get for Christmas that I was kind of excited about, I asked my husband for it. I was always confident in my sewing skills or my straight stitching skills, but I said, why not? Let's go ahead and get one of these. This is a seam allowance guide. So you basically stick your needle in the hole here and drop your needle in there. So say if you wanted a 3/8 inch seam allowance, drop your needle, make sure it fits in there nicely. Then you're going to take this little magnetic guide right here and you're going to place it right up against the ruler here. Lift your presser foot, lift your needle, and now you have a perfect 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So as you are sewing your piece, whatever project you're working on, and you put it under here, it's going to be identical, whatever seam allowance that you want. So as you can see here, I actually went ahead on this one and did a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So I've got nice, even stitching all down the strap. And I can't do that by eye on my own, even though I was, like I said, confident with my skills. So definitely recommend getting one of these. I'll put a link in my description box if you are interested in purchasing one of them yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and butt this right up against my presser foot here. That's going to give me about a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance on this instead of the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And we'll go ahead and get going stitching this. I have my stitch length at 5 millimeters. And the thread that I'm using, if you're interested, is actually from Saya Swag, her website. It's the Text 45 that I currently have. Normally I stitch with the upper thread at a Text 70 and my bobbin at a 45. However, I didn't purchase the black 70. I must have missed that. So I'm working with the 45 on both of these. My machine is a Juki. It's a semi-industrial, so I can't handle both the 70 in the upper and in the bobbin. So that's why I kind of divide it up, because I do like the top stitching look of the 70. All right, let me go ahead and get this sewn up for you. Okay, and there we have. Got a little bit of sewing machine oil on that I need to wipe off. But there we have our second strap. So these are the lower portions of our padded straps, but like I said earlier, it's the same exact process if you are doing a 1-inch strap for the entire bag. So we've got these. Now it's time to go ahead and add our hardware and get everything. Okay, I've already gone ahead and done one of my straps. This is what it's looking like. So I've got it's secured here with a box that I've sewn and a rivet in the middle. And I have my hardware attached right here. And I have my strap connector, and I went with an O-ring here. So I'm going to show you how to do this right now. This is going to be the same exact process for your standard straps, the 1-inch wide straps. as far as attaching the hardware. So let me show you how to do that. So you're going to grab your 18-inch strap right here, or if you're doing the full standard strap, grab that as well. Again, same process here. We want to first start by going ahead and feeding one of our ends through our tri-glide or our strap slider here. We're going to wrap it around the center bar. So I go on one end, I'm going to wrap it down and around the center bar, and we want to go down and overlap about 1 inch to 2 inches. For mine, I've gone about 1 inch, so if I take a look here, I've got 1 inch overlap. And I'm going to go ahead and find a location that I want to put my rivet in. So I'm going to pick about the middle here. Right about here is where I'm going to select to put mine. And because this vinyl is rather thick, I'm going to do these one at a time. So I punched my first one. Now what I like to do is grab my pen, stick it through that hole so I can see my marking, and do the second one. Okay, once you do that, put your rivet in. Okay. All right, that is now secured. So the next step we want to do is we want to go ahead and grab our strap connector. Now I've gone ahead and already sewn this right after I did my straps. It's the same process as making the strap, except you don't fold it that last time. You're just going to fold it towards the center and top stitch like this. Now we're going to go ahead and put our D-ring, O-ring, or rectangle ring through our strap connector. Fold it in half and clip it into place. And if you hear that in the background, that is my dog asking to go out. So I'm going to see if I can get this done real quick, and then I'll take him out. So we got our strap connector. As I'm editing this video clip, I realized that my audio is completely cut off, so I'm going to go ahead and narrate this here for you. What I've done is I have inserted that strap into the O-ring. I'm going to fold that back over on itself. Then we're going to take that and feed it up through the one side of the strap slider. Then we're going to go back down through the other side of the strap slider. Now this can be tricky when you're working with thicker vinyl. You're going to have to work at getting it to pull through. They do make wider mouth strap sliders. I didn't have any on hand, but that does make it a lot easier if you can find those strap sliders and use those when you're working with the thicker materials. Okay, now I've gotten that pulled through, so this is what my strap is looking like. And then in this clip here, I'm not exactly sure what I was telling you guys, but this is basically what it's looking like from the front side and from the back side. Next step is we are going to basically measure out 1.5 inches from that short edge right there. That's going to be the portion that we're going to overlap on the underside of our padded strap. So I'm just placing that 1.5 inches up. I'm going to go ahead and secure it with a couple of clips so that I can take it over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew a box to secure that into place. All right, I have finished my second strap. So we are all finished with the straps. We can go ahead and set those aside, and we'll attach those later when we're working on our back exterior piece. Okay, now we're going to work on the front exterior of the bag. These are all the pieces that you're going to need. This is your front panel overlay, your front exterior sides, 2 of those, and your front exterior middle piece. Let's put the overlay away for the moment, and we're going to work on these pieces. The first step that you're going to want to do is you're going to put right sides together on one of these edges. Doesn't matter which one you start with. And what I've done here is I have marked off a little notch here to indicate my 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. This is going to tell me where I need to line up the top of this with this piece right here. So if you can see right here, the little point is going just a little bit past this middle piece. So let me let me do this like this because I can't do it backwards. Get it lined up and then I'll show you here. Okay, so we're going to clip this into place. And then as you can see, I have gone ahead and made that point over, just extended a little bit from the top portion here because I have indicated that the 3/8 of an inch is right here. These two basically should be matching up, and this is where I'm going to begin sewing at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance to secure these two pieces into place. Once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and fold it open, press it with my iron, and then I'm going to come back and top stitch with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to go ahead and get that done for this side, and I'll show you what it looks like, and then we're going to repeat the same process for the other. All right, I've got the first side attached. I'm going to repeat the same process for the other side. As you can see here, we do have that little bit of an overhang. We're going to trim that off in a moment. Here is the back side. I went ahead and chose to do a semi-coordinating thread here for the top stitching. I didn't think the black was going to look nice. So now I'm going to go ahead and repeat for this side, clipping it into place, matching up that 3/8 of an inch here at the very top. And I will be back to show you that I've got this all top stitched and sewn together. So now what you want to do is grab your pattern piece D, which I have right here. I just have it flipped over at the moment. I've got some notes that I wrote on the other side of it. What you're going to do is you're going to place this over top, and any areas that you need to trim down to make it all even, you want to do that now because there is a little bit of irregularities usually in this bottom piece right here. Obviously the corner, the little edges here, and then the edges over here as well. So get that trimmed up, which I'll do here off camera. That way I can get it a little bit more accurate since I'll have it right over me. Once you get that done, what you're going to do is you're going to get your double-sided tape, and on the wrong side of your front panel overlay, apply some double-sided tape along each of these edges here. This is going to keep this piece from shifting whenever you go ahead and top stitch this. So remove the backing, apply this overlay, and top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance right here. I'll come back once I get all of those steps done and show you the finished result. All right, I have sewn on my front panel overlay by top stitching it on. I did want to show you a little tip that's not in the pattern, but this is something that you can do, especially if you're working on a domestic machine and you're worried about that bulk that you're going to get with these two layers here in addition to your gusset and then ultimately your binding. Is what you could do here is you could flip this whole thing over and you can go ahead and lift up this underlay piece right here and just cut it off. Get rid of that excess. So basically it's just going to be one layer here. So that's something that's personal preference if you want to go ahead and do. I'm going to go ahead and leave it because my machine can handle it, and it just gives this a little bit more structure itself, kind of like it's another layer of you know, interfacing or something, if you want to call it that. I did also want to talk to you about doing this overlay piece in cotton instead of the vinyl. So for those of you that are making the entire bag in cotton, this is what you'd want to do. So there are two separate pattern pieces for the cotton. So these do not need to be used. Oh, I had grabbed the wrong one. Let me get the other one. Okay, so pattern piece C1 is going to be for your vinyl only. So that's the one that I just did here, the vinyl. But if you're not using vinyl, you're going to go ahead and use pattern piece C2 in addition to pattern piece C3. What you're going to do is you're going to cut your cotton fabric from both of these pieces. And we're going to pretend right here that this is the right side of the fabric and this is the wrong side of the fabric in this demonstration here. The same with this one. You're going to take both of your cotton pieces here. You're going to do right sides together. So you're going to take this little piece right here, this V, and you're going to clip it into place right here on top of your fabric. So clip it all into place. You're going to go ahead and sew this on with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you do that, you're going to come back with your scissors and you're going to be very carefully cutting a notch, just kind of like when you're working with your zipper overlays. You want to go ahead and notch right into the edge without doing the threads there. Once you do that, you're going to go ahead and basically flip this so that it's on the reverse side. And what this is essentially doing here is this is creating a nice finished edge for you. That way, obviously, it's not going to fray. We don't have to worry about that with the vinyl. We can kind of keep that raw edge there because there's no fraying, and it looks nice and clean. So once you flip it to the back side, you're going to press it with an iron, and then you're going to come in and you're going to top stitch this with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then you're going to proceed just like we did with the vinyl one by using some double-sided tape. You could probably get away without double-sided tape on that. It's not going to shift as much as vinyl would. And then top stitch it on in place. So that's how you do the cotton fabric for the overlay. All right, get that out of the way. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to work on our back exterior pieces. So we can set this one aside. I've got my back exterior right here. So I'm doing the vinyl. You can do cotton as well. Then we have our exterior zipper pocket lining. Then I have my strap anchor here. I'm going to go ahead and also cut down some number 3 zipper tape and grab my zipper pull as well. Went ahead and got my number 3 zipper. I put my zipper pull on it. I'm going to put that aside for the moment. The next thing that we want to do is if we're working with the vinyl like I am, we're going to use the pattern piece F, the exterior zipper facing pattern piece as a template for the placement and cutting out this internal rectangle here. Otherwise, what you're going to do is you're going to actually have the fabric piece. And later in the video when we do the lining zipper pocket with the cotton, it's the same process for that, for the exterior. But we're going to go ahead and use this for the vinyl. What we want to do is we're going to measure up from this kind of like this bottom corner right here, this bottom edge, 2 inches up and 2 inches in from the bottom corner. And that's going to be the placement. Now you could certainly go ahead and place your zipper pocket on the left side of the back or the right side of the back. It's completely up to you on how you do this. So I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler here to find 2 inches up and 2 inches over. And that is where I'm going to be placing my either zipper facing with the fabric or we're going to go ahead and place this for our template right here. So I'm going to place the bottom corner at that 2 inch mark. And I'm going to draw this off camera just to make sure I get it all lined up. Another way we can do this, this is usually what I do, is, so I got that 2 inch mark there. And then I take this roller and I butt it up against here and line this edge up right here at the 2 inch. That way everything's nice and even. And then from here, I want to line this up. This is easier done when it's kind of in front of you. I'm reaching over here. We're going to line this up, okay? And then get yourself a removable marking pen, and we're going to go ahead and trace around the inside here. And then what we want to do is come back and we're going to cut it out with our rotary cutter very carefully. So let me get the markings done and then I'll come back and show you. I have my rectangle drawn. Now we need to carefully go ahead and use our rotary cutter and our grid ruler to cut out, trying to find my, there it is, to cut out our rectangle. So get this lined up right on that line. And very carefully with your rotary cutter, you're going to go ahead and start cutting, but don't start right at the edge or you're going to end up being outside of your rectangle. Some of this is going to need to be done manually with scissors. So I go in eyeballing it about 1/2 inch and try to do one continuous cut so that it's nice and clean, stopping about 1/2 inch before. Then let's repeat for the other side. Okay, now that we've done that, you can see that I've got it cut for the most part. Now off camera, that way I can really see what I'm doing, I'm going to go in with my scissors and cut these last little bits here that I haven't cut out. And then we can go ahead and start putting our zipper pocket together. Alright, I've got that cut out now. Now we're going to go ahead and work on our exterior pocket lining. What we want to do is we're going to start by picking a side here and placing the zipper right side up alongside the pocket that is right side up, just like this. And we're going to clip it into place. I'm going to sew this to start with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just to kind of base it into place. So I'm going to sew along this side. I'll come back, that is base stitched into place there. I'm going to go ahead and take the opposite side here. And again, I want the right side here up and the right side of the zipper up. So the whole entire time, we have not sewn any fabric to the right side of the zipper. And this is creating a circle right here, a little loop of fabric when we sew this together. So we're going to clip this into place. And again, top stitch here, or stitch it together with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then I will come back and show you how to install it here into our exterior back panel. Okay, I have sewn that together. So again, we have our loop. This is what it's looking like. I've applied some double-sided tape along both sides of the zipper. Just kind of showing you here what it's looking like. Be careful not to pull your zipper pull off there. So I keep it a little bit like that. So I've applied the double-sided tape here. This is going to help us keep our zipper pocket into position. We want our zipper pull to the top of the bag. So you can see here, initially you might be like, oh no, I did it wrong. All you got to do is kind of flip it. And there you go. You have it right side up. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and place this underneath the bag, the back exterior. And we're going to work to get it nice and even in this seam, this open rectangle here. I'm going to do this off camera because it's a little hard to do it, again, from away from myself. But I'm going to start by peeling the tape back on one side, getting it positioned just like how I like it. And then I'm going to go ahead and peel the tape back from this side. I've got my pocket secured to the exterior back with the double-sided tape, so it's looking like this. What we're going to do is we're first going to come over. We want to make sure that this pocket is all nice and flat. You want to make sure this underside is nice and flat and taut too as well. And we're going to come in, because the pocket's over here, we're just going to sew at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance down this side right here, which is the right side of your pocket. Then what I'm going to do, after I've sewn that, I'm not going to go around the corners or anything like that, just the straight line right here. What I'm going to do over at my sewing machine is I'm going to go ahead and take this pocket and I'm going to flip it to the other side. But again, I want to make sure that I get this entire pocket pulled over so that there's no like overlap in here. Because then you'll stitch it by accident. So get it all pulled tight. Okay, then you bring it back, you flip it back over here, and then you're going to take it on your sewing machine and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to do 1/8 of an inch seam allowance down this side. Once you do that, you can take your pocket, you can flip it back into place, making sure everything is taut. And then, if you choose to do so, you don't have to, but you can go ahead and connect those two lines on the short edges here. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and I'm going to do all of those steps. Start with this, flip my pocket to the other side, do this one, and then I'm going to do now I have my pocket all completed. So there we have it on the back side. Now I can go ahead and trim off this extra zipper tape here that I have. Oh, I forgot to do this. I actually need to go ahead and sew up my pocket, so right now it's still open. So what I'll do is I'll take this over to the sewing machine, and what I do is I flip this out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and sew with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance down this side, and then I'll flip it over to this way and do the same thing, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I'll get that done in just a moment. But in the meantime, let me show you how to do the strap anchor. So you're going to need your strap anchor piece. You're also going to need your straps. So if you got your 1-inch straps or your padded straps, grab those. The first step is to go ahead and draw a line 1/2 inch in from one of these long raw edges, which I've done. You can't really see it because I've got the double-sided tape right up against it. Apply some double-sided tape. Remove the backing. And we're going to fold that over. We're going to fold this edge over to meet the line that I drew. And that's going to give us a 1/4 inch fold by doing that. So you can see that my tape is holding excellent for this thick vinyl with such a tiny fold over. Normally, a lot of the tapes that I've used, the double-sided tapes, they go and by now they're already releasing. So this is some good tape. I'm happy with it. So I'm going to use my little roller just to kind of crease it. Okay. And now what we can do is we can apply another piece of double-sided tape to help us keep it into place. And I'm doing it just not right at the very, very edge because I don't want it to peek out at all. Okay, get your exterior back. And this is going to be the same for either the padded straps or the 1-inch straps. I like to get my grid roller here, and I find the 5 inches on here. And I'm looking at this top edge, is kind of what I'm looking at. Placing my roller at the 5-inch mark here. Okay, and I'm going to probably do this off camera, that way I can ensure that I've got everything level. But basically you're going to put that bottom edge of the strap anchor along that 5-inch line or 5-inch markings. You can double check your work by folding your back exterior panel in half and then checking those 5-inch notches that you just drew like I'm doing here, and making sure that they're in the exact same placement on both sides. Then you're going to go ahead and take this over to the sewing machine. Sew with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance along that bottom edge of the strap anchor only. Alright, I got my pocket completely stitched closed, and as I started doing my strap anchor, I realized I forgot to tell you guys that the fold over needs to be done on both the top and the bottom edges. So make your 1/2 inch line, fold it over 1/4 inch, add your double-sided tape, and then we're going to go ahead and place it. Another tip I wanted to tell you is once you've got your little 5-inch notches here on the edges, you can check your work, making sure that it's all even too, since we're not working on any flat lines. As you go ahead and fold it in half here and kind of look at the edges and make sure that everything is matching up, and that'll help guarantee that your strap connector is even. So I have done that, and I can still see my marks just barely. I'm going to remove my double-sided tape only from the bottom edge, or I should just say one edge of it. I'll leave the other backing on. Okay, and I'm just barely leaving it there, and I'm just going to check again. I just want to make sure everything is pretty even. And I'm happy with that. So, just going to give it a firm press. Okay, so make sure you leave that top edge open, okay, because we still need to tuck that on there. Now what I want to do is I like to flip it to the back, and then these extra little overhangs here, we can just simply go ahead and use our rotary cutter to cut it off even. Now it's time to tuck in our straps. So if you're working with the padded straps like I am, want to remind you that you're going to have them placed where they're curving outwards, okay? So outwards. So don't do them inwards like that. That's the wrong way. You want to do them this way, because basically what you're doing is you're leaving room for your arms right here. That's kind of what it is. So we're going to work with those. Okay, so if you're working with the 1-inch straps only, and I'm going to pretend like this is just a solid strap piece here. you're going to go ahead and measure in 5 inches from this bottom edge here, and you're going to insert your strap at the 5-inch mark. I like to angle it out just a little bit when I'm doing it. So again, we're pretending like this is just one solid 1-inch strap. Angle it out, so 5 inches in. And let me get you the right measurement. You can visually see it here. So 5 inches is right here. So actually I want to start my strap over here. Okay, and then you're going to angle it out. And you can use some double-sided tape to kind of help you keep that into place while you're stitching it. You'd repeat it for the other side. Okay, so that is if you were doing the solid 1-inch strap, you know, at the top here. But we're working with this this one here. So this particular one, you want to make sure that you've got it wrong side up. Okay, and then you want to make sure, I'm actually going to trim this even. It's a little bit off here. And I'm going to just double check that these are equal real quick because I didn't do that earlier. Got a little bit extra on one of them because I think I trimmed it down earlier. Okay, now these are even. So making sure I'm working with the right strap, the one going outwards, you want to make sure that you're working with it so that wrong side's up. So I'm flipping it so that I can go ahead and tuck this in underneath here like this. So when I'm sewing this in and everything's done, my strap is the correct way, just like this. So while we do the 1-inch strap 5 inches in, this strap, because it's so much thicker, we're only going to go in 1.5 inches right here. I got my little ruler here. So we have 1.5 inches in. So our strap's going to start right here. So we're going to tuck that in. You can, again, use some double-sided tape if you want to help you secure it into place. You can use some clips, which I can get by, I think, with my clips here. And these ones you just keep straight. You don't have to angle these ones. So I've got that in 1.5 inches. Do the same for the other side, 1.5 inches. All right, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine. Now you could simply go ahead and top stitch right along here at 1/8 of an inch, but I like to do a little extra security on it, even though I'm doing rivets in a moment. What I like to do, and I do this also with the 1-inch strap, I'll kind of tuck this down and out of the way with some clips. Okay. And then what I do is I'll run 2 or 3 stitches, as long as it's going to be under. Okay, this is what it's looking like with those 2 rows of stitching there. Now it's time to go ahead and release those clips, take off that top edge of the double-sided tape, and secure that down, all in place. And I'm going to top stitch this edge right here at 1/8 of an inch seam. Okay, I've sewn the top edge of my strap anchor. Now I'm going to go ahead and place my stabilizer. Technically I should have done it before the strap anchor because that just helps to keep it basically in place itself with that top stitching over top of here. So either way it doesn't really matter, not a big deal. But I do like to add it now, or at least I should say after I add this pocket. All I do is I simply go ahead and cut a line here to make an opening and slip the pocket through. So I kind of just eyeball it. I don't get too technical with it. I want to make sure that it's centered here. It's going to be out of our seam allowance. So I think it looks good. Yep. It pulled through nicely. So ideally, just again to reiterate, I would have done this before adding the strap anchor and the straps because this stitching right here would have helped to keep it secured even more because I don't know, I have trouble myself with the glue activating. I don't know if I don't hold it long enough. It makes me nervous with the vinyl, but that would help to keep it in place. But I haven't installed my rivets. I started doing my rivets and then I realized I didn't have my interfacing. So those rivets that I'm going to install in just a moment to keep those straps extra secure are going to help to also keep this into my rivets placed. And my interfacing on wasn't able to get the glue to work on it very well, but I'm not too worried about it. Once you get it all constructed, it'll be fine. The next thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and attach our strap connectors, which I've already got attached here to my straps, to the bottom here of the bag. They are placed 1 inch up from this bottom kind of corner edge here. So get your ruler or your grid mat, however you're going to do it, and measure up 1 inch. And I'm going to turn this around so I can do it. So 1 inch up, and you're basically going to just go ahead and do it at a little bit of an angle like this. I get the bottom corner here at the 1 inch mark. And then I clip it into place. Just like this, and I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine and just base stitch it on here. So that's secured. I'll do the same thing for the other side. Okay, I've got those strap connectors secured to the bottom, so we'll go ahead and get that set aside. I've gone ahead and base stitched my divider panels. So that center divider there, just wrong sides together, those two pieces of fabric, base stitch it into place, and that's all you're going to do for that one. You can set it aside. Now we are going to work on the lining that's on the back of the bag. So you're going to need your zipper facing, your zipper that matches. I don't have the measurement in front of me right now, so that's in the pattern. And then your zipper pocket, and another piece, one of your lining pieces right here. Okay. What we're going to do is set this pocket aside for the moment. Take your zipper facing, and you're going to do it wrong side up. Okay, 5 inches down from this top. And you should find your centers on all of your panel pieces, because that's just going to help later on in construction. I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, and where I've drawn the inner rectangle here, I'm going to go ahead and sew. Got that sewn on there. Now it's time to get your ruler and your rotary cutter. We're going to cut right down the center, keeping it away about 1/2 inch from both of these short edges. So don't cut all the way to the edge. And then use some scissors, or I just use my snips here, and kind of go in towards the corners without cutting the threads. You're going to pull this through the hole that you just created. So I usually flip it. And we're going to take it over to the iron, and we're going to press it flat. Alright, I have my last lining panel here. I am ready to go ahead and make my slip pocket. In order to do that, you're going to take your slip pocket piece, and like I mentioned earlier, you can certainly go ahead and shorten this up if you want to. It's completely up to you. This is what it would basically look like size wise, and you can get your hand into here. One of them will be a little bit more narrow than the other, so if you feel like it's a little bit too deep, feel free to go ahead and reduce your size and make it a little bit shorter. It's up to you here. So what I'm going to do is I've made, like I said, the right sides together, matching the short edges here. Take this over to your sewing machine, sew down one side, over a couple of inches and backstitch. Stopping here, we're going to leave about a 3 to 4 inch gap here in the middle. Begin stitching again, making sure you backstitch here, around and back up this side. You want to leave that opening in the bottom center here, so that way we can go ahead and turn this right side out in just a moment. So I'll get this. Alright, I've got that sewn. Now what I want to do is I'm going to cut my corners so that I have a little bit of a sharper corner when I turn this right side out. And then right here, this is the folded edge, the original folded edge that was not sewn. I'm going to go ahead and top stitch it. I'm probably going to go ahead and do 2 parallel rows of top stitching here at 1/8 of an inch apart from the edge here. And then when I when I'm at the iron here, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I get these pressed in. Alright, I have gone ahead and top stitched my pocket. I also went ahead and placed it 5 inches up from the bottom edge, lining this up at the 5-inch mark. And I went around and sewed this at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, so down one side, across the bottom, and up the other. Then I went ahead and divided my pocket down the center. So now I've got 2 equal slip pockets right here. So this side is done. I've also gone ahead and found my centers by clipping notches, folding it in half here. And then I just use my scissors to clip a little notch, so that's going to stay within the seam allowance. I've done that for all of my panels. So we have our front panel. This is our divider panel. This is our back panel. And I got to grab the exterior front panel. Alright, and our exterior front. So the next thing that we have to do is we base stitched these two together. Okay. So now we need to go ahead and base stitch our lining front with our exterior front here. I need to go ahead and get my interfacing secured because I didn't do that already. So I'm going to go ahead and iron that on, and then I'm going to go ahead and base stitch this all together so it's one piece. So we're going to base stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Alright, I have base stitched my exterior front panel with my lining panel. I've also found my centers by clipping notches. All you got to do is fold everything in half and clip within your seam allowance a little notch out of the bottom and the top of all of your pieces. So that is the front. Here is our center divider. Again, clipping notches to find my centers at the top and the bottom. And the same for the exterior back here and the lining, finding your centers. So we're going to go ahead and set all of these pieces aside for later, because now we need to go ahead and build our gusset so we can tie all of these panels together. So I've laid out my pieces basically how I'm going to go ahead and sew them. Starting from the front of the bag, we're going to start with the most narrow gusset, which is the top gusset number 1. I have cut my zippers already. I have 2 29-inch zippers with my zipper pulls on. If you're working with 2 zipper pulls, make sure you get 2 put on in each of those, but you can certainly go ahead and just do the 1. A little tip is I always cut my zipper tape about 1/2 of an inch longer than I need or than the pattern says, because I'm terrible about getting my zipper pulls on, and I usually don't have it even at the end. It gets all shifted, so that gives me a little extra allowance there for any errors that I might have. So I've got that there for both of those. Now, when we're making this bag, we have our divider down the center. So we basically are going to be joining gusset number 1 and gusset number 2 to a 29-inch zipper tape. Then we're going to go ahead and take gusset number 3 and we have to build gusset number 4 completely, and then we're going to attach that to a zipper tape as well. So these 2 pieces are not getting joined because we have to put our divider here in the middle. And then we have our bottom gusset pieces here, which we'll deal with later, so I'm going to set these aside because we're not doing that at the moment. So just to recap here what I'm going to do. We're working with gusset number 1 and gusset number 2. Okay, I'm going to begin with gusset number 1, the exterior piece, and my zipper tape. I want to put right sides together, matching up the edges, clip it in place, and we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and I'm going to base stitch this on with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then I'll come back here and show you the next step. So I'm going to continue clipping, and I'm going to sew right down this one side of the zipper tape. Okay, I've got that sewn on. The next step that I need to do is I need to apply the lining piece. So number 1, top gusset number 1 lining, you're going to place that with the zipper wrong side up, take the lining and put it right side down, just like that. Clip it into place, and then you're going to sew this with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance along the whole width of it. Okay, I've got my zipper secured to the exterior top gusset number 1. Now I need to place my lining over top of that. So I have my zipper facing wrong side up. I'm going to take the lining and make that right side down. I'm going to clip this into place, and I'm going to sew this now with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance along here. So then it's going to basically look like this once it's sewn. So it'll be, you have your lining, the wrong side of your zipper, then the right side of your zipper, and then your exterior. So that's kind of how it's sandwiched in between. All right, now I have my lining attached. So what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and expose the zipper by folding back both your lining and your exterior pieces here, and you're going to clip it out of the way. So you're going to go down and do that for the entire part, and you want to make sure that you're kind of tugging at it, that way you get it to go nice and flat, and you want to make sure that both of these edges are flush with each other. So I'm going to continue to go ahead and do that. Now that I have this all clipped out of the way, I can go ahead and now, you can certainly go ahead now and do your top stitching at 1/8 of an inch all the way down here. I'm going to hold off for the moment because I'm using 2 different colored threads. I'm going to do my top thread with the black, and I'm going to do my bobbin with the gold color here. And then I also need to change out my presser foot to the Teflon foot, so rather than changing back and forth, I'm going to go ahead and wait and do my top stitching here once I get this side attached as well. So now it's the same process. You're going to take your top gusset number 2, the exterior piece, place that right sides together with your zipper. Sew that on with 1/8 of an inch base stitch, then place your lining on the opposite side, sandwiching the zipper, and sew that with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, now that I have the other exterior secured to the other side of the zipper tape, now it's time to do the lining, just like we did before. I'm going to flip this so that the zipper is facing wrong side up. Take my lining piece, place that right side down on top of that. I'm going to clip it into place, sew it with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. My lining is now secured. So just as we did before, we want to fold this away from the zipper tape, and then do the same for the lining, so you're kind of tugging on both of those. And then you're going to use your clips to secure it back. And now is the time where I'm going to go ahead and top stitch. So I'm going to continue clipping this out of the way. This is what it's looking like. So we've got our lining and we have our exterior. So I'm going to go down at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance down both sides of the zipper tape here and get this all sewn flat. Then I'm also going to go ahead and base stitch around the edges here to get everything to lay flat as well. Alright, gusset number 1 and 2 are now top stitched and base stitched around the outer edges here. So this one is ready whenever it's time to do the final construction. We're going to go ahead and set this aside. Now I'm going to repeat the same process for gusset number 3. I have gusset number 3 now done. I have gone ahead and top stitched it and base stitched it so that it's all ready. Again, this is going to be the front portion of the bag with the divider in the middle, so we're not joining those right now. And now we need to go ahead and work on gusset number 4, which is this last piece right here. We're going to set the lining aside for the moment, and we need to work with these 3 sections as well as the handle. We need to go ahead and build our handle. So these 2 are top gusset number 4 sides, and this is top gusset number 4 center piece. Grab your handle and your handle overlay. We're going to work with the handle to begin with. For your handle, what you want to do is you're going to take this over to the iron. You're going to press it in half. And this is just like doing 1-inch straps. Press this in half. Go ahead and bring the raw edge towards the pressed center. Do that for both of these sides. And press it with an iron. And then you're going to go ahead and fold it again and press it with an iron. And then once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and come in and I'm going to top stitch 2 rows of top stitching on both sides at 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and then 1/8 of an inch from that first row of stitching, and then repeat it for both sides. Then I'm going to come in, and actually I'll go ahead and pause for the moment and come back once I get that done, and we'll talk about the handle overlay. Got my handle done, and I've prepped my handle overlay. What I've done is I have drawn a line 1/2 of an inch in from both of these shorter edges. Then I placed a strip of double-sided tape just alongside these edges. I'm going to remove that and fold it over, and it's going to create a 1/4 of an inch fold here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and I'm going to top stitch both of these edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then I'm going to take my handle and I am going to center my handle overlay on top of my handle here. And I'll do that here off camera to make sure it's precise. Once it's centered here, I want to fold this over, and I want this raw edge right here just a little off the center point. And you can see here it's a little bit off center, and then you fold this one over nice and tight. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run 2 rows of stitching down the center here to secure the handle overlay in place. So I'm going to get all of that done and I'll come back and show you. Alright, I have attached the handle overlay to the handle. Now it is time to put together gusset number 4. So what we want to do is we're going to start with the centerpiece. And we want to go ahead and center the handle on this piece right here. I've got a little notch here on the end, and I'm just kind of eyeballing the handle itself. I'm going to clip it here into place, and we're going to do that for the other side. Okay, and then this gives us the handle for our bag. Now if you don't want your handle to be raised as much, you can certainly just shorten the ends of your handle here, and then obviously it's just going to go ahead and set up just a little bit less. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and base stitch this in place with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on both sides. Then I'm going to go ahead and take one of my side gusset pieces here, the number 4. I'm going to place this on top, clip it into place, and I'm going to sew this at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to repeat this for the other side as well, and we'll come back to show you the finished result. I've completed attaching my side panels to my center panel here. I've also gone ahead and top stitched at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance along both of these sides. So now this is ready to attach to the previously constructed top number 3 gusset and the zipper. So just as we did before, we're basically going to go ahead and place right sides together, the zipper with the exterior, clip it into place, top stitch here with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then I'm going to do the same thing again with the lining, place that on top, clip it into place, and sew with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Alright, I have now finished adding the gusset number 4 to gusset number 3 with the zipper here. Just to show you and recap everything, we've got gusset number 1, 2, 3, and 4 with our 29-inch zippers in between. Now we want to find the bottom gussets that correspond. So I've got those laying underneath here. So I have my exterior and my lining that goes with this one. And then I also have my exterior and lining for this one. Now earlier in the video I didn't show you the foam stabilizer that you'll use for the bottom gusset B, so you do want to cut that, and then optional you can go ahead and add in some Decaville Heavy here, and then I went ahead and added on top of the foam. If you want to put it directly onto the vinyl, go ahead and do that, and then put the foam on the very top, either way. Let's see here. So we're going to go ahead and work with gusset number 1 and 2 first. It's going to be the exact same process for 3 and 4. We want to combine these now. So take your exterior gusset, okay, and then I have to trim up my edge a little bit here. It's not going to make that much of a difference. And then what you want to do is you're going to clip these together. And you're going to sew this initially with, just to kind of baste it into place with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, and then once you do that, once you sew here at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're going to go ahead and then place the lining, right sides together with the lining, clip it into place, and now you're going to go ahead and top stitch at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and take both of these and pull them away from each other. Okay, and you're going to top stitch here at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, I've got that now sewn together and top stitched. So this is what yours should look like right now. I got to go in and clean up all my threads. I'll do that later on. And one thing that I wanted to point out here is, depending on the type of fabric that you're using, you definitely want to go ahead and check and make sure that everything is even when you're kind of pulling all of these down together, and that everything's matching up. And there is a little bit of a discrepancy there, so I'm going to go ahead and just trim that even. Before I do that, I just want to double check and get it all tight. And I found that this happened to me when I used a different fabric for the other two bags. I can't remember what kind it was, but it was essentially a looser weave. So I found that with working with it, it kind of stretched a little bit. So you want to make sure that these are even. So I've only got about an 1/8 or a 1/16 of an inch here that's off. Okay, now we're going to repeat the same process for the other side. So let me get this flat for you and show you. We want to go ahead and, without having this all twisted, you're going to bring the other end here to meet up. Sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then you're going to flip this over. Take your lining, again, making sure that it's not twisted. Okay, put it right here and sew this with 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then you're going to come back in and you're going to go ahead and top stitch at an 1/8 inch. So I'll do that now. And then I'm also going to repeat the exact same thing with the back, the gusset number 3 and 4, and bottom gusset B. Okay, I have my gussets done. Let me show you what I've done here. So I got everything sewn together and top stitched. I also went around the outer edges here to base stitch everything into place. So this is what it's looking like. So this is gusset number 1 and 2. And then we have gusset 3 and 4 right here. I did the same thing on this one. Went around and base stitched this in place. And you can see right here is where my stabilizer at the bottom is, because it's much more rigid there. Alright, so now what you want to do is you want to get your scissors and find your centers of both pieces of your gusset. To do that, go ahead on the side seams here and match those up. And then make sure you pull these tight. And then you're going to clip a little notches. This is going to help us when we're constructing it later to match up the notches on our panels with our gusset. So you're going to do it to both sides of your gusset, top and bottom, and back and front. Okay, and now we want to grab our panels. So the first thing that we're going to do with our panels is we're going to work on the divider ones. So put away your front and your back panel and grab just the divider. We're going to start by attaching gusset number 2, which is the second biggest one. So gusset number 2 to the panel here. And the way that we do this, and I need to turn it around for a moment so I can get it lined up, is we're going to go ahead and match up our notches that we clipped in our panels and our gusset. Start with the top one. And so I have this, as you can see here, if you want to call it wrong sides together or lining sides together here. Now you want to make sure you don't have anything twisted here, and you're going to repeat for the bottom side. So match up your notches. And then what I like to do is I like to continue around. You can either start from the bottom and go up, or the top go down. And I'm just going to take my time and clip everything into place. Okay, so now we're left with the bottom corners, and as you can see, it's not going as easily. What we need to do is make our clips, our little notches, and the gusset itself. Don't do this part, do the gusset. So you're going to need about 15 to 20 notches within the seam allowance, pretty close together, about 1/8 of an inch away from each other. And you just go to town and you start clipping away. It's really going to help ease that gusset around those corners. And the beautiful thing about this pattern is if you don't get it right to the edge here, which I have been able to do it most of the times, the bag still looks great. So I'll just trim that little extra off right there when I'm done sewing this all together. So I'm going to repeat for the other side. Okay, so now I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and I am going to base stitch this into place at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and I'll come back. Alright, I've sewn this on. So this is what it's looking like. To familiarize you again, this is gusset number 1 and gusset number 2. Here's the opposite side. Now what we need to do is we need to attach the gusset number 3 to gusset number 2 right here. So in order to do that, we want to take this guy right here. We're going to turn it wrong side out. And we are going to go ahead, let me look at this, flip this over so that we have gusset number 2 right here, the wider one, because we're going to attach it to this side here. Now we want to get the top of our notches here. So we got the top notch here. We're going to match it with the top notch in the gusset. So again, we got gusset number 2. It's going to be right side together with gusset number 3. Now I'm going to continue on just like I did earlier, taking my time going from one side to the other to clip everything in place. Once I get that done, there's no sense in showing you again, it's the same exact process, but once I get all this clipped, now I'm going to go ahead and stitch this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance along the whole entire outside. I didn't mention earlier, but I do like to do my stitching where I start here at the very bottom center and I come around that way. One thing that I did want to mention that I didn't a moment ago is that you want to make sure that you're matching up your side pieces right here in order to have that seam be the same. So make sure you get that done. Technically go ahead and do that first instead of the top and the bottom. And then you're going to go ahead and go in and do your top and your bottom. And that way everything is going to line up nicely. Alright, I've got my gusset sewn here together, and I went ahead and trimmed down my seam allowances to about 1/4 of an inch here. You can go ahead now and check your work by turning everything right side out and kind of pulling apart those 2 gussets. Now, I already did look at this and I was happy with the results, but basically this is what you've created. You've got your front of your bag here, which is going to be your smaller divider pocket, and then you've got the larger in the back. So the pattern, the way that I've written it, is to do the binding at the end for all 3 sections that you need to do. But you can certainly go ahead and do it as you sew each portion together, and that is what I'm going to do in this video right now. It's kind of easier because you're already right here to do it this way. I just thought it was simpler to write the pattern, all the binding to be done all at one time at the very end. So today we're going to go ahead in the video and do the binding now as we do each section here. So I've decided to go with waterproof canvas. I'm doing the black because that's the closest color that kind of coordinates with everything. I'm just going to go ahead and fold it with my hands as I go through and attach this. Waterproof canvas binding is the easiest method out there. I really just would rather do this. It's a lot less time consuming, and binding is really forgiving. When it's inside of a bag, you can really not catch both sides and go back and kind of stitch it again. And then once you turn that bag right side out, you're really not going to see your little flaws because it's kind of crammed down in there in the corners of your bag. Also, waterproof canvas kind of lends to more of a rigid, structured bag because of the density here of this fabric. So that's definitely a benefit to waterproof canvas over store-bought or your own like cotton binding that you make yourself. So I'm just going to continue going around as I am right now, clipping this on, and then what I'm going to do is once it's clipped on, I'm going to go and sew this with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just from this little outer raw edge here all the way around the bag. So that's what I'm going to get done now. I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like at the end, and I'll try to clean up all these little pieces of strings I've got. Alright, I've got my binding all sewn. Now what I need to do is I need to go ahead and turn this right side out, and we are going to be attaching our exterior front now. So the exterior front goes with the smaller pocket here versus the larger one. And what we want to do is we're going to need to be able to take and put this right sides together. So this needs to be flipped around, and it's going to seem a little awkward because it's the smaller of them. I'm going to turn this around like this. Okay, so you can see here that the one that we need to use is right down here. So we're going to have to tuck in the larger portion here. So I usually go ahead and just lay this down and over and put a clip here. Try to keep it out of the way. It doesn't want to cooperate today. No. Okay. And we're just tucking this one out of the way. We're going to be working with this shorter one. And what we're going to do is we're going to place this right side down. And I am working with the smaller gusset right here. So I want to put right sides together. So I've got the exterior vinyl right here against the exterior front, matching up that notch at the very top center. Then do your bottom. And continue working your way around the bag just like we did before. Another thing that's going to help you is if you open up that zipper pocket, it's going to actually give you a little bit of wiggle room to move things around. So let me open that up. See, now we're free, and it's much easier to work with too. So. So this is what the one side looks like that has the front exterior. And then this is what the back's looking, or the opposite side's looking like, just so you can kind of know when you're following along here, because it can get a little confusing. Now, what I'm going to do is if you want to save your binding to the end, go ahead and do that. You turn it right side out. But now I'm going to go ahead and trim down all of my seam allowances to 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm gonna do the binding on this one just like I did before, with the 1 inch waterproof canvas all around the outside edge. Before I do that though, I do want to turn my bag right side out just to make sure that, I'm gonna do that right now to show you, just to make sure that I didn't have any issues with anything that didn't look right. So I'm just kind of pulling this guy right side out. Your hand in there and kind of push everything and go inside. So here is the inside front to call it front divider section here. And I'm just smashing my hands in here and then going around this edge and pushing it out so I can see what it looks like. Alright, that's looking good. I'm happy with that. Just to show you guys real fast. So, this is our front right here. And then we have with a side view. Alright, we're on the home stretch. So I've got this finished, the binding all done. Now it's time to turn everything right side out. And then I like to really get in there with my hands and kind of work at that binding and get it into the position that I want behind here, so it really makes that nice curve. So just kind of finger creasing it here and pressing it. Okay, so I will take this over to the iron and very gently press this front cotton portion when I'm finished with the bag. And now it's just time to go ahead and work on the very back. Same process as the other two. We're going to go in, and for this one, since we need to get right sides together, we're going to take this whole thing and turn it, kind of flip it on itself. So just like this. Okay, and now we want to put right sides together, so the front exterior with the back exterior. Tuck those handles in there. Make sure they don't get in the way whenever you're sewing. And match up your top and your bottom and everything else in between. Now, I did not mention that you want to make sure you're opening up your zipper. It makes it easier to maneuver and also obviously to turn your bag right side out. So I got this all binded together. So now it's time to do the final turn. Now this is pretty rigid with all of this binding in here. So it's going to take a little effort to get this baby turned. Okay, here is the finished Sutherland. As I was recording the last clip, I got a phone call, so I wasn't able to finish that. So what I did is I took this over to the iron and I very, very carefully pressed the cotton fabric here. Don't want to get that vinyl or you're going to melt it. So I'm really happy with the results of this. I'll show you in a moment what it looks like on me. So there we go. Okay guys, here is my completed Sutherland. I am very pleased with how it turned out. I even like the black binding that I went with on the inside. I was not sure if I was going to like a contrasting binding, but I think it really ties everything together. If you like this bag and want to purchase it, or my other two Sutherlands, it will be available for purchase on my website. All of my bags are one of a kind, so if you like it, you better get it before it's gone. Well, now that I've sewn mine, it's time to sew yours. Thank you so much for watching.